There are wounds that cut deeper into the soul than any physical pain could ever reach, especially when the hand that inflicts them belongs to the person you loved most, the one you trusted with your entire life. Until that rainy night in our cramped South Bronx apartment, I genuinely believed I was one of the happiest women alive. I had a beautiful 4-year-old daughter named Layla, though I often called her Ila in my most tender moments, a husband who, at least in public, seemed devoted, and a quiet, predictable life I had chosen for love. That illusion shattered with a single brutal kick. The storm outside was ferocious. Torrential rain hammered the window panes like thousands of angry fists, matching the fury inside our living room. Damon stood over me, breathing heavily, eyes bloodshot with rage. I was already on the cold tile floor, curled into a fetal position, trying to protect my head and torso from whatever came next. The pain in my left leg exploded the moment his shoe connected. It felt like white-hot, lightning traveling from my calf straight, up my spine to the crown of my head. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out, only a choked gasp. The agony was so complete that even breathing felt impossible. I bit down hard on my lower lip until I tasted blood. His polished black shoes stopped inches from my face. Even through my blurring vision, those shoes remained terrifyingly sharp and clear, expensive. Italian leather he had bought with money I had given him. He crouched down slowly. His fingers twisted into my hair and yanked my head back with such force that my neck cracked audibly. The handsome face I used to kiss good morning was now twisted, red, almost unrecognizable. "How dare you talk back to me, you parasite!" His voice was low, venomous. "I only asked for $50,000 for the business." $50,000? And you can't even give me that? Will you be satisfied when you see me begging on the street, Sophia? Is that what you want? Every word landed like a fresh stab to the chest. Parasite. I had quit my promising job at a mid-sized marketing firm 3 years earlier, exactly as he demanded, so I could stay home with Layla and take care of our family. I had handed over every cent of my savings. I had sold the small condo my adoptive parents left me as their final gift, pouring that money straight into his so-called startup dream. And now, in his eyes, I was nothing more than a leech. Tears burned behind my eyelids, but I refused to let them fall in front of him. My voice came out weak, trembling. "Really, Damon? I don't have any more. I gave you the last of it last month." "You know that." "Liar," he roared. His grip tightened. Pain flared across my scalp. "Didn't your adoptive parents leave you that house when they died? You sold it and hid the money from me, didn't you? Confess right now." I wanted to laugh through the pain, bitter, broken laughter. That house, the last remnant of Franklin and Martha Patterson's love for me, had been sold 3 years ago. Not to buy handbags or jewelry. I sold it to pay for Damon's supposed emergency heart surgery when he swore he was dying. He had cried in my arms, begged me to save him. I liquidated everything. He recovered suspiciously quickly after the money cleared. Now he had conveniently forgotten. My leg throbbed so violently that nausea rolled through me in waves. Below the knee I felt almost nothing, just a terrifying spreading numbness. Something was very wrong. "Please," my voice cracked. "Please stop, my leg. It hurts so much." He released my hair. My head snapped back against the floor with a sickening thud. "Let it hurt," he spat. "Maybe the pain will finally knock some sense into that smart mouth of yours." He stood up, walked to the sofa, and picked up his phone as though nothing had happened. When he spoke again, his voice transformed. Sudden honey, warm and loving. "Yes, my love. I got your call. I'm just finishing up a small work issue. I'll be there soon. I can't wait to see you and our son. Kiss him goodnight for me." "Our son?" My heart stopped. I must have misheard. I had to have misheard. But the words echoed in my skull like gunshots. Our son. Who was he talking to? What son? Before I could even process the fresh wave of shock, a tiny muffled sob came from the hallway. My eyes flew to Layla's slightly open bedroom door. She stood there, barefoot, in her little unicorn pajamas, half hidden behind the frame. Her round eyes were enormous, brimming with terror. Both small hands covered her mouth, trying desperately to silence her crying. She had seen everything. She had watched her father beat her mother. She had heard every ugly word. Damon heard her too. He ended the call instantly and whipped around. "Why are you crying?" he barked. "Stop that noise and go back to your room. Close the door, now." Layla's whole body shook. She didn't move. Her gaze locked onto mine, Fearful, yes, but also strangely determined. There was a spark of understanding in those 4-year-old eyes that no child should ever have to possess. In that instant, amid the despair and the pulsing agony, a fragile thread of hope appeared. I met her stare. Very slowly, painfully, I shook my head. No. Then, carefully, so Damon wouldn't notice, I pointed toward my phone lying on the side table next to the sofa. My eyes begged her, please understand. I didn't know if a 4-year-old could comprehend what I was asking. But Layla was brilliant, always had been. She glanced at my finger, then at my face. She blinked once, then gave the tiniest nod. Damon had turned toward the window to light a cigarette. Grumbling under his breath, Layla moved, barefoot, silent as a shadow, step by careful step toward the sofa. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought it would burst. Please don't turn around. Please don't turn around. She reached the side table. In a quick, deliberate motion, she pretended to stumble. Ouch! Her small hand slapped the phone. It tumbled onto the thick rug with a soft thud. How clumsy can you be? Damon snapped without turning. Pick it up and stop making noise. Layla scooped the phone and, rather than placing it back, clutched it to her chest and ducked beneath the low coffee table. Out of his line of sight, I watched, barely breathing, as her tiny fingers pressed the screen. The password was her own birthday, something I had taught her just in case Mommy ever needs help. The screen glowed softly. She opened contacts, scrolled with trembling effort, stopped on the name I had saved as Beloved Grandpa. She pressed call and brought the phone to her ear. Her lips were pressed so tight they were white. For several horrible seconds, no sound came out. She was too frightened to speak. Then, barely a whisper, but clear enough. Grandpa, Grandpa, Mommy, Mommy is going to die. Silence on the other end. 1 second, 2, 3. I almost despaired. Then a deep, calm, authoritative voice answered. Quiet, but cutting through the tension like a blade. Ela, my brave girl, you did so well. Can you tell Grandpa exactly where you are right now? That voice, that warm, powerful voice I had known since childhood. It was like oxygen after drowning. I dragged myself closer, ignoring the fire in my leg. I leaned toward the phone Layla still held. Grandpa! My voice shook violently. It's Sophia, we're at the Crestwood Apartments, South Bronx, Unit 4C. A brief pause. Understood. No hesitation, no panic, just absolute certainty. Lock yourselves in a room. Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone, not even your husband. Grandpa is coming. The line went dead. Layla looked up at me with huge, tear-filled eyes. She was still terrified, but now there was a tiny light of hope flickering there too. I pulled her into my arms. We crawled, me half dragging my useless leg, into the bathroom. I locked the door, turned on the faucet to muffle sound, washed the tear-streaked dirt from both our faces with shaking hands. I held her close on the bath mat. It's going to be okay, baby, I whispered into her hair. Grandpa's coming. Everything's going to be okay. I didn't know how he would get here so fast. I didn't know what strings he would pull, but I trusted him the way I had trusted him when I was 6 years old and scared of thunderstorms. 20 agonizing minutes passed. Every drip from the showerhead sounded like a countdown. Then outside engines. Not one motorcycle, multiple deep, expensive engines. Tires screeching. Doors slamming. Heavy, organized footsteps in the hallway. The landlady's shrill voice, "What is all this noise at this hour? Who are you people?" Her protest died instantly, replaced by a sharp intake of breath. I cracked the bathroom door just enough to peek through the apartment's front peephole. 4 men in perfect black suits stood in the corridor, broad shoulders, impassive faces, and in the center, Grandpa. Not the gentle, gift-bearing grandfather of my childhood memories. This was Alexander Monroe, former CEO of the Monroe Construction Group, now retired but still carrying an aura that made people instinctively step back. Tailored charcoal suit, ebony cane with silver handle, snow-white hair, eyes like steel wrapped in velvet. "Where's my granddaughter's apartment?" His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The landlady pointed with a trembling finger. Grandpa gave a small nod. 2 bodyguards moved to our door. "Sophia," he called, same gentle tone he used when reading me bedtime stories. "It's Grandpa." "Open the door, sweetheart." I limped across the living room, unlocked it, and collapsed into his arms. He caught me easily. One warm hand stroked my back. "Shh, it's over now. Grandpa's here. No one will hurt you again. Behind us, Damon's motorcycle roared into the alley. He must have finished his sweet phone call to his other woman. When he saw the line of black sedans blocking the street and the suited men at the door, every drop of blood drained from his face. He parked crookedly, ran toward us. "What the hell is going on? Who are you people?" Then he saw me in Grandpa's arms. "Sophia, who is this old man?" Grandpa turned slowly. His gaze sliced through Damon like a scalpel. "So you are Damon Garrett, my granddaughter's husband." Damon squared his shoulders, still not understanding the gravity. "Yeah. And who the hell are you to barge into my home?" Grandpa's voice dropped lower, dangerously calm. "Who I am is unimportant. What matters is what you did to my granddaughter tonight." His eyes moved to my swollen, discolored leg. One bodyguard stepped forward instantly. "Damon Garrett, you are under citizen's arrest for domestic violence and aggravated assault. You will come with us." Damon laughed, nervous, disbelieving. "You can't do that. You have no proof." "The proof," Grandpa said quietly, "is on her body. And in the terrified call my great-granddaughter made to me 20 minutes ago." Damon's eyes darted to Layla, hiding behind my legs. For the first time, real fear flickered across his face. He hadn't expected the ignored little girl to be the one to destroy him. Two bodyguards gripped his arms. "Let go of me!" "Sophia, tell them. You want to see your husband in jail? Really?" I met his gaze. There was no love left, only cold, exhausted contempt. Grandpa signaled. Another bodyguard handed the landlady a thick envelope. "For back rent. And for your discretion." Her eyes widened. She nodded frantically. "I didn't see anything. I don't know anything." Grandpa turned back to me, voice softening again. "Come, little one. Let's go home." He lifted Layla effortlessly into his arms. She buried her face in his chest. A bodyguard supported my weight as we walked to the waiting sedan. Inside sat a woman in a white coat, the family doctor. As the car pulled away, I looked back through the tinted window. Damon, still struggling, was being forced into another vehicle. The glittering New York night slid past us. My old life was ending. A new one, terrifying, uncertain, but finally safe, was beginning. The luxury sedan glided through the rain-slicked streets of New York, like a black ghost, silent and impossibly smooth. No rattling subway, no sputtering motorcycle, exhaust, just the soft hum of a powerful engine and the faint scent of expensive leather. Inside, the world felt muffled, protected. For the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for the next blow. The family doctor, a kind-faced woman in her late 40s named Dr. Elena Reyes, worked with gentle efficiency. She cut away the torn leg of my sweatpants, examined the rapidly swelling purple bruise that covered most of my calf and shin, and palpated carefully. "No open fracture," she murmured, more to herself than to me. "But there's significant soft tissue damage, likely a deep contusion and possible partial tear in the gastrocnemius. We'll need imaging tomorrow. But for tonight, ice, elevation, compression, and strong anti-inflammatories." She wrapped my leg in a temporary splint, gave me an injection for the pain, and taped a cold pack in place. The medication hit fast. The screaming edge of agony dulled to a deep, throbbing ache. Layla had fallen asleep against Grandpa's chest almost the moment the car doors closed. Her small face was streaked with dried tears, but her breathing was even, trusting. Grandpa held her as though she weighed nothing, one large hand cradling the back of her head. I stared out the window at the passing city, lights, blurred streaks of gold, and red against the black. My mind kept replaying fragments. Damon's voice on the phone. "I can't wait to see you and our son." The way Layla had understood my silent plea without a single word. Grandpa's calm command. "Grandpa is coming." I turned to him. His profile was lit intermittently by passing street lamps. Strong jaw, silver hair, eyes fixed on the road ahead. "Grandpa!" My voice was hoarse. "How did you get here so fast?" He didn't look at me right away. He adjusted Layla's blanket with infinite care. "I never stopped keeping watch, Sophia." "Not really. After your parents died, I promised myself I would always be one phone call away. Tonight, I was already in the city, business that could have waited. When Ila called, his voice roughened for the first time. I moved. I swallowed. "You brought an army." A faint, wry smile touched his lips. "Old habits. When you have means, you use them to protect what matters." The car turned onto the Long Island Expressway, heading east toward the Hamptons. I had only been to his estate a handful of times. Formal holidays? Awkward because I always felt like an outsider despite his warmth. Tonight it didn't feel like visiting. It felt like returning. We arrived just before dawn. The wrought iron gates opened silently. A long driveway lined with ancient oaks led to the main house, a classic Georgian mansion of pale limestone, lit softly from within. Staff waited at the entrance, discreet, efficient, already informed. Grandpa carried Layla inside. I limped behind, supported by one of the bodyguards whose name I later learned was Marcus. A housekeeper, Mrs. Clara, took one look at my face and ushered us upstairs without a word. "This was your mother's room when she was a girl," Grandpa said quietly as we entered a spacious bedroom on the second floor. Pale blue walls, white crown molding, a four-poster bed draped in cream linens. On the dresser sat a framed photograph of Franklin and Martha Patterson, smiling on their wedding day. My throat closed. Grandpa set Layla down gently. She stirred but didn't wake. "Sleep now," he told me. "Tomorrow we begin again." I didn't argue. The pain medication and exhaustion pulled me under like a tide. For the first time in years, I slept without nightmares. Morning sunlight poured through tall windows. I woke to birdsong and the distant sound of waves. Layla was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the bed beside me, studying my bandaged leg with solemn curiosity. "Does it still hurt, Mommy?" "A little," I admitted. "But it's getting better." She touched the bandage very gently, as though it might break. "Grandpa said the bad man can't come here." My heart squeezed. "That's right, baby. He can't." Downstairs, breakfast waited in a sunlit conservatory overlooking the garden. Fresh croissants, fruit, coffee that smelled like heaven. Grandpa sat at the head of the table reading the Wall Street Journal. Beside him was a man I vaguely remembered, mid-50s. Wire-rimmed glasses, impeccable charcoal suit. "Sophia," Grandpa said, folding the paper. "This is Jonathan Davis, my personal attorney and oldest friend." Mr. Davis rose and offered his hand. "Miss Hemphill, I'm deeply sorry for what you've endured, but I'm glad you're safe now." We ate in companionable quiet at first. Then Grandpa set his coffee down. "There's no time for mourning what was, Sophia. We must act quickly and decisively." Mr. Davis opened a leather portfolio. "We've already taken preliminary steps. Last night, while you rested, we obtained an emergency protective order barring Damon Garrett from any contact with you or Layla. We also filed for an immediate freeze on all joint financial accounts and assets to prevent dissipation." I stared at the papers. "Joint accounts? We don't have anything left." I gave him everything. Mr. Davis gave a small, professional smile. "Legally, you remain married. That means community property? Rules apply in New York. Every dollar you transferred to him over the last 3 years is potentially traceable. We intend to trace it." Grandpa's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "That boy didn't simply fail at business, Sophia. There's more here. Davis, tell her what you found overnight." Mr. Davis slid a single sheet across the table. It was a bank transfer summary. Over 36 months, I had sent Damon $487,000 in various increments, my entire savings. The condo proceeds, even small emergency withdrawals from credit lines I'd taken in my name. Every payment had gone to accounts in his name, but the very next line made my stomach drop. Within 48 hours of each deposit, the funds were wire transferred, sometimes split across 3 or 4 intermediary accounts before landing in a single LLC, Golden Future Investments and Development. The registered agent and sole manager, Eliza Sterling. Mr. Davis placed a photograph beside the document. A woman in her late 20s, sleek dark hair, expensive smile, designer coat, standing beside Damon on a Miami beach. The timestamp. 2 months after I sold my parents' condo to pay for his heart surgery. My hands began to shake. "There's no construction business," I whispered. "No," Mr. Davis confirmed. "Golden Future appears to be a shell. Virtual office on Fifth Avenue. Minimal activity. But the apartment Eliza Sterling currently occupies is a $4.2 million duplex on the Upper East Side, purchased 18 months ago, all cash." Grandpa leaned forward. "He didn't fail, Sophia. He succeeded at building a second life. With your money." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. "And the child?" My voice cracked. "The son he mentioned on the phone?" "We're confirming," Mr. Davis said quietly. "But preliminary surveillance shows Damon visiting the same Upper East Side address 3 to 4 nights a week." A toddler, approximately 2 years old, has been observed in their company. I closed my eyes. He hadn't just cheated. He had built an entire parallel family. My sacrifices had funded it. Silence stretched. Then I opened my eyes and looked at Grandpa. "I want it all back," I said. My voice didn't tremble. Every cent, every lie. I want him exposed. I want custody of Layla, sole custody. And I want him to go to prison. Grandpa studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "Good." Mr. Davis smiled, small, approving. "Then we begin." The next days blurred into a disciplined rhythm. Mornings, physical therapy for my leg. The MRI confirmed no fracture. Only severe bruising and micro-tears. 6 weeks of rest and rehab. Afternoons, meetings with Mr. Davis in Grandpa's wood-paneled study. Evenings, time with Layla, reading books, coloring, slowly coaxing the frightened shadows from her eyes. Mr. Davis's team worked with terrifying efficiency. Eliza Sterling, pregnant throughout most of the proceedings, was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison after her full confession and cooperation. Package shaved a few years off. Clarissa Garrett, Damon's mother, received a 3-year suspended sentence due to her rapidly deteriorating health. She passed away quietly in a state nursing home 18 months later, estranged from everyone. I didn't attend the sentencing in person. I had already said what needed saying on the witness stand. Instead, I spent that day planting tulip bulbs with Layla in the garden of the Hamptons. House, bright red and yellow, ones she chose because they look happy. When the news alert came, through on my phone, I read it silently, then turned it off and continued digging small holes in the soft earth. Layla patted the soil around each bulb and whispered, "Grow strong, little flowers." That was the moment I truly let go. Not forgiveness. Forgiveness would have required something from them. I no longer cared to give, release. I released the weight. I had carried so long that my shoulders no longer remembered how to slump under it. In those 3 years, the Serenity Home grew from a single, renovated brownstone in Brooklyn into a network of 6 safe houses across New York State. We offered emergency shelter, legal aid, trauma counseling, job training, childcare, and, most importantly, community. Every woman who walked through our doors heard the same message. You are not broken. You are not alone. And this is not the end of your story. I spent 2 afternoons a week there, not as the wealthy benefactor inspecting her charity project, but as one of them. I brewed tea, listened without interrupting, cried when they cried, laughed when they laughed. I told my story when someone needed to hear it, and I listened to theirs when they needed to tell it. One Thursday, a woman named Aisha arrived with her 9-year-old daughter and a black eye that was still fresh purple. She had seen my interview on a late-night news segment 2 months earlier. When you said, "I stayed because I thought leaving would break my daughter more than staying did," I felt like you were talking straight to me, she whispered in the intake room. I left that night, packed 1 bag while he was at work. I thought I would die of fear on the subway. But I kept thinking, if Sophia could stand in front of cameras and say she survived, maybe I could survive too. I hugged her for a long time. Then I showed her and her daughter to their room, helped them unpack, and signed her up for counseling and GED classes. 3 months later, she was working part-time at a local bakery and smiling in a way that reached her eyes. Stories like Aisha's became the heartbeat of the Serenity Home. Each one reminded me why I had fought so hard. Not just to punish Damon, but to make sure no other woman had to feel as invisible as I once did. Professionally, the transformation was equally complete. I no longer introduced myself as Alexander Monroe's granddaughter. I was Sophia Monroe, CEO of the Monroe Group since Grandpa officially stepped down 18 months earlier. The board had voted unanimously after I led the Asian expansion that closed 3 multi-million-dollar infrastructure contracts in Japan and Singapore during a global supply chain crisis. I negotiated with the same calm precision Grandpa had once used, but with something extra, the knowledge that I had already stared down worse monsters than aggressive board members or stubborn counterparties. The press no longer called me the battered wife who fought back. They called me the Phoenix of Park Avenue, New York's most formidable female CEO, the woman who turned personal tragedy into corporate and philanthropic power. Let the headlines roll off me. like rain on glass. What mattered was the quarterly reports, the employee retention numbers, the new scholarship fund we established for children of domestic violence survivors, and the fact that Layla now had a college fund that would never depend on anyone else's goodwill. Layla herself was the brightest proof of healing. At 7 years old, she was bright, fearless, endlessly curious. The nightmares had faded within the first year of Weekly Child. Therapy and consistent safety. She no longer flinched at loud voices or sudden movements. She ran into rooms instead of hiding behind doors. She had friends, sleepovers, soccer practice, piano lessons, and an impressive collection of glitter pens. One evening, she climbed onto the couch beside me while I reviewed merger documents. "Mommy?" "If someone hurts you, you tell someone, right? Even if they say it's a secret?" My heart squeezed. I set the tablet aside and pulled her onto my lap. "Always, baby. Always tell someone you trust. And if that person doesn't help, you tell another person. And another, until someone listens." She nodded solemnly. "Like I told Grandpa. Exactly like that." She rested her head on my shoulder. "I'm glad we have Grandpa, and I'm glad we have us." "Me too, sweetheart, me too." That weekend, we drove out to a small rented beach house on the California coast. No sprawling estate, no security detail. Just a wooden cottage with a garden full of bougainvillea and a path to the sand. Grandpa came with us. He had slowed down noticeably. His steps were more deliberate. His naps longer, but his mind remained razor-sharp and his love undiminished. He spent most of his days reading on the porch or building elaborate sand structures with Layla. One golden afternoon, as the sun dipped toward the Pacific, Layla ran off to join a group of local children building a massive sand fortress. Grandpa and I sat on a weathered bench, watching the tide creep in. "She's just like Martha was at that age," he said quietly. Full of light. I leaned my head on his shoulder. "Thank you. For everything." He patted my hand. "You did the hard part, my girl. You chose to rise." A shadow fell across us. "Good afternoon, Mr. Alexander. Sophia?" I looked up. Marcus, the architect who had volunteered on the Serenity Home renovation project for the past 18 months, stood there in faded jeans and a linen shirt, hair tousled by the sea breeze. He carried a small paper bag of pastries from the village bakery. "Thought you might like something sweet with the sunset," he said, offering a shy smile. Grandpa's eyes twinkled mischievously. "I think I'll go supervise the castle construction. You two enjoy the view?" He rose slowly, cane tapping the wooden path, and headed toward the beach where Layla waved enthusiastically. Marcus sat beside me. We watched the sky turn apricot and rose. The silence between us was easy, unforced. "You look different today," he said after a while. "How so?" "Not the CEO, not the advocate. Just peaceful. Like someone who finally believes the storm is really over." I smiled, small, genuine. "Maybe I do." Our eyes met. No drama, no fireworks. Just quiet recognition. "I'm not very good at this," he admitted. "Saying things. But I've wanted to tell you for a while. I admire you, not just what you survived, but what you built afterward. And I'd like, very much, to spend more time with you, if you're open to it." My heart gave a soft, hopeful thud, the first in years that didn't carry fear. "I think I'd like that too." He reached over and brushed a strand of hair from my cheek. His touch was careful, reverent. I didn't pull away. The sun slipped below the horizon. The first stars appeared. Layla's laughter floated back to us on the breeze. I looked out at the darkening water and felt something settle deep inside me. The storm was truly over. What lay ahead was not a fairy tale ending, but something better. A real life. With scars, yes, but also with strength, purpose, love, and the certain knowledge that I could weather whatever came next. Because I already had. And this time I would never again forget my own worth.